This is Kenny Omega. He is a professional wrestler, like a dragon fan, and an expert on getting hit with a bicycle.
No, he hit him with a bicycle!
Today he's going to be sharing his thoughts on the recent Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, as well as breaking down some of the game's wrestling inspirations.
As wrestlers, one of the most common weapons that you see us use is a steel chair. If I was part of Ichiban's party, I'd fold that chair up. You'd have to, actually attack it with that flat part.
If you enjoy this kind of content, be sure to check out our previous episodes and subscribe for more experts coming very soon. But without further ado, it's over to Kenny.
So we've tuned in. Early on in the game, you can see the levels are 3 and 5, and our protagonist, Ichiban Kasuga, doesn't normally look like that. He doesn't look like John Travolta normally. He's got kind of like a curly afro, which I sometimes can get, so I can relate quite a bit. And we have caught up with our special guest character for Ryuga Gotoku 8, and someone who I consider a great athlete, and not only that, but a great influencer as well, and content creator, and that's Mikuru Asakura. He's a very good MMA fighter from Japan, but he's kind of made the segue into content creation, and he's got a very popular show on YouTube called Breaking Down. Generally, the concept is just amateur fighters, thugs from the street, trying to prove how strong they are and how tough they are. And it's kind of evolved to now it's, amateurs versus pros, pros versus pros, but it's a great show. It is great to see how Ryuga Gotoku constantly and consistently adds special guest characters like this just to make things a little more interesting and add a little bit of, just a little bit of reality into the world that already feels alive. Pause. Looking at Quarterwise here, man. Like the Kasuga hero vision, where your everyday enemy turns into like something monstrous, like Quarterwise. I don't have any sort of phobia of clowns or anything like that, but he's a pretty freaky enemy. What I love about the Ryuga Gotoku universe is that they understand when it's time to be serious, when it's time to tug in your heartstrings, when it's time to show the relationship between characters and the effect that it has on them when they encounter some kind of hardship. There's so much variety and variation. And you look at Quarterwise and you might laugh, but I mean, he's clearly a pretty intimidating enemy.
Here I come!
All right, pause. Just for reference, look, I'm about 65, 70 hours into this game. I think I've used Scrubdown just now that we've seen. I think I use it more than any other spell. It's so good. I like Tommy for the Scrubdown and for his taxi driving antics.
Put your hands together for our top model extraordinaire!
Oh, man. So we see our... They sort of look like professional wrestlers in appearance. A couple questionable wardrobe choices, especially while they're about to fight our protagonist and friends. But man, this is one of my favorite scenes in the game so far. Like I said, I'm about 70 hours in. You're hot in the heels of one of, at the time, the bigger villains. I'm searching through this lair, and now suddenly I've stumbled upon a model show. For whatever reason, the DJ drops the beat and sends out the wrestlers with the ball gags in. I mean, when I explain that to you, you're like, what kind of game is this? But trust me, it works, and it's so cool, and it's so fun. You see the outfits there, and that's a very classical wrestling singlet with the Lucha Libre mask. I can't speak to a singlet, never worn a singlet. I've maybe never worn a mask either. But of course, I do have a history doing Lucha Libre wrestling in Mexico. And of course, I fought a lot of the greatest combatants that use Lucha Libre as a discipline. The ball gag, hey, let's not go there. That's private. I don't want to talk about that right now. But all the other stuff I can say with a degree of certainty, never tried it. I'm a very classical, just long tights guy. But yeah, no, one look at those guys. The wrestlers. And clearly they've, if I remember their moveset, they've got some chops. They do the lariat. They've got wrestling moves to boot. This is a very, very fun fight.
Take this!
Let's pause it for a sec. So I'm new to America. I really am. I'm Canadian born, lived a lot of time in late in my career in Japan. I suddenly made the move to America, and I've been living here for about 5 years. Look, I find it funny for Ryuga Gotoku to make the move from Japan to Hawaii or America. And one of the enemies that they fight uses a pizza as a shield and a gigantic, I would say 2-liter bottle of pop, but that thing is like a 10-liter bottle of pop. Like, how do they come up with this stuff? And I will say that at Pizza Guy's shorts, I would buy those if I could.
You know what this baby is? A machete. One of the most useful tools there is.
We have Danny Trejo here, another guest character, of course, assuming a different role. Fantastic job, fantastic performance, real fun fight. Going from fighting various Yakuza families to now fighting, an American Hawaiian street gang with having Danny Trejo as a representative. Very different, very cool. And one thing that I love Ryuga Gotoku always does for all of their main bosses or the bosses that they're trying to teach you, hey, this guy's a big deal. This guy's going to be a contender. He's going to give you a rough time. They always do these really cool introductions. You know from the intro what exactly you're going up against. There's a lot of times in wrestling where there may be someone that you're unfamiliar with and you're thinking, boy, wouldn't it be great if I just had like a hard introduction to this guy? Wouldn't it be great if I knew what they could do? If I could care just a little more about the person, the human behind the mask or the human behind the character. Sometimes I might not like a boss. I'll hate him because I hate his personality. I won't hate the design, but I can go back to like Ryuga Gotoku 7. I hated Mabuchi. I hated him. I thought he was an asshole. And I'm thinking like, man, this guy's a terrible person. But then you see that he's got this awesome music. Fighting style is really cool. And now I'm thinking like, man, I want this story to continue. I want to fight Mabuchi more. They have this real good way of making you enjoy fighting guys who are rotten to the core.
Brace yourself.
Oh, there it is.
Time to go all out.
Speaking from experience, just a little bit of experience, that release German suplex we just saw, I mean, that's, you could take it from amateur wrestling, you could take it in professional wrestling, a release German suplex like that. And trust me, if you're landing a guy the way that the oiled Baron was landed, all the tanning oil, all the baby oil in the world ain't saving you. That's the real deal. And the people from Like a Dragon have always liked professional wrestling. You know, from time to time, you will get a move here and there where you go like, wait a minute. You'll see some of the enemies do like a move from one of the top stars in New Japan, Tetsuya Naito. It's a move called Destino. And it's not a move you would just pull out of thin air. You have to know this stuff as a wrestling fan to want to put it in the game. As a wrestler and someone who loves this game, it's really cool and refreshing to see that they have the same respect towards, you know, other types of fighting styles, other jobs. They're really trying to represent everything in the strongest way possible. Not sure how many of the viewers will be familiar with something from my childhood. One of my most favorite shows growing up was The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. That's classic Will Smith elbow drop. You know, when he would fight with Jazzy Jeff, he would always do he'd tap the elbow and he'd jump way up in the air and do this elbow drop, this big exaggerated elbow drop. I love seeing stuff like that. Again, it's just like, that's Kasuga's personality. They could have easily choreographed a cutscene where he was John Wick and no one would really question it, but he's got that goofy demeanor to him. Everything played out the way that you would see it play out, except for maybe that elbow drop at the end. But then that's what makes it Kasuga. So it's beautiful, beautiful thing.
Honestly, say hero's bad, right? Time to go to work.
Again, as a wrestler, there are things that you associate with your own identity, with your personality. And for some wrestlers, it might be a mask. For fans that know a wrestler, like, for example, The Undertaker, you know, his source of power was the urn. You know, you'd have to take the urn everywhere that he went. We have Sting over in AEW. He always carries a bat. They're like an extension of the person. To see Ichiban go from his day job to then having to suit up and look the part, that's a lot like what we do in the ring. Kenny Omega's looks a lot different than how I look right now. I've been on the receiving end of a barbed wire covered bat, and I think that if you were to take it to the streets and that was going to be your only means of defense against gang members around the world, I think you'd still probably be okay. Those things can do damage, and I'll never be the same. My 2023 was full of many cuts, many bruises, many stitches, a lot of bloodshed, and a lot of it had to do with barbed wire covering blunt force objects. So I know what that's like. I know it all too well. As wrestlers, one of the most common weapons that you see us use is a steel chair. It probably doesn't take a brain surgeon to understand that hitting someone with the piping of the chair, like the sides, if I was part of Ichiban's party, I'd fold that chair up. You'd have to, actually attack it with that flat part. That hurts so much. And it results in just terrible injuries. I've been hit with a lot of stuff over my career, and especially this past year. In fact, some Like a Dragon inspired weapons. I was involved in the Like a Dragon Gaiden street fight match. For as much as a kendo stick might hurt, or some barbed wire thumbtacks, being hit with a bicycle, full blast. We're talking like 360 discus throw bicycle shot. There's never quite been anything like it. In fact, I don't even know if you can see it. I have like a scar from the wheel hitting me. You see it on my arm? It's not going away. That's what a bike does to you. Yeah, like that. The exact same thing happened to me with the bike. There were comments like, oh, this is silly. Why would someone use a bike in a fight? How could that hurt? I couldn't believe people actually think that. You're getting hit with a real life bicycle? I get it. I've been there. I'm living it. Still living it to this day.
You're probably one of the only people in the world that plays these games and also got hit by a bike.
I don't think there's too many fights in the world that ended this way. The dude had the bike in the ring, and it's like, oh man, I know this is like a show. All right, I'll get hit with a bike. So I go in the ring and I'm just getting walloped by this bike, and I'm like, yeah, you guys made the right decision, but someone had to do it. Does that mean I won't do it ever again? No. Like, let me do promotional work again. I love matches like that. When those weapon attacks do more damage than your normal attack would, there's a reason for it. It's not fun. It's unpleasant.
Here we go.
Kiryu is back. You'll see the environmental sort of special attacks that you have to be at the right place at the right time. If something in the environment looks like it can be interacted with, there's probably a very good chance that Kiryu's got an appropriate attack for it, and they do a ton of damage. Oh, you're doing it. You're doing it, aren't you? Yeah. Yeah, that's my favorite heat attack. I don't know why. It's not like it's like too special, but just picking up a guy, hucking him in the river, hucking him in the ocean. It's just like insta kill. And I love to see it. It's a very fun way to get rid of sometimes some like really annoying, powerful enemies. I love it.
What the hell? Indeed. It's an underground coliseum. The Sujimon Stadium. Home of the Suji League, where rival Sujimon trainers come to compete.
If you evolve your professional wrestling Sujimon, it goes from being, your average, everyday, normal looking, plain, base color tight, lucha libre mask looking wrestler to pretty much the Captain America version. That's everyone's image of wrestling right there. It's easy to understand. But what a great way to show what exactly a professional wrestler is. Like the stereotypical professional wrestler. It doesn't get much more stereotypical than that. I think there's no better way to tell somebody, hey, this is supposed to be a professional wrestler, than putting a championship belt on somebody. I feel like with the spiky shoulder pads, like Legion of Doom style, with the combination of the championship belt, it's like, yeah, that guy's a professional wrestler.
Let's give it everything we got.
We don't plan on losing.
Call me crazy. I feel like there's two wrestlers here. Because, you have the Legion of Doom Mohawk dude, but then you got someone who I'd put money on it. Whoever designed this character had John Cena in mind. He looks like John Cena. The wrist like bands, the backwards hat. The pants are a little off, but you know what I mean? I feel like that's supposed to be John Cena.
What's wrong? I spilled it. I had a big mess.
Leave it to me. Scrub. Yeah. Clean, mean, and everything in between. Ta-da! Whoa! See? All gone.
Oh, rad. Lean and mean, huh?
Job classes. They're huge in Like a Dragon, where essentially it decides all of your attacks, what weapon you use, And it reminded me about the decision to decide a character for professional wrestling. My favorite wrestlers, they had a job, and it was kind of a normal job. It was something identifiable. Maybe the wrestler that I liked was a clown. Maybe he was a garbage man. Maybe he was a plumber. And then the bad guys, it's tale as old as time. It's so easy to identify with your character and your attacks if you're familiar with what it is they're representing. I mean, if you're a linebacker and you did a tackle, it means more to me than just having Kasuga do a tackle to an enemy. The fact that he's a linebacker makes it mean more. For me, it brings back memories of my childhood when I was watching professional wrestling. And now that I'm involved in wrestling, I can really appreciate being able to select your job or your gimmick or your character. It's the same thing. It's just apples and oranges, but I relate to it a lot. I mentioned a garbage man. You know, there's Duke the Dumpster Drozy. He would use a move called the Trash Compactor. $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. He would use a move called the $1 Million Dream just as a way to humiliate his opponents after he would stuff dollar bills in their mouth. If Chitose, for example, started hitting someone with a mop, or vacuumed them. That might seem weird. But if you say, hey, this is housekeeper Chitose, then it's like, it starts to make more sense. Oh, I get it. All of our attacks are going to have to do with cleaning. If I'm a housekeeper, I want housekeeper moves. If I'm a beekeeper, I want beekeeper moves.
Prepare yourself.
As a wrestler in 2024, you always think of new ways. How are we going to bring new fans in? How can we get a new fan base, whether it be young, old, different cultures, shapes, sizes, colors? Just we want anyone to appreciate what we do as an art form, as a form of entertainment. Much like the Like a Dragon universe, it can be whatever you want it to be, as long as you give it a proper introduction, explain it, and have fun with it. And that's sort of my take on wrestling, and clearly that's sort of like the take on this game, where if you put time and care into everything that you do, you'll get the appreciation back. People will have fun with it. I can't imagine someone seeing any of those job descriptions, any of those introductions to a job and go, well, that looks stupid or that sucks. How could you? It's so awesome. It's badass. And like as a wrestler, I can change my job too. I could be a chef tomorrow if I wanted to be, and then I could change, and then I could be a desperado. They're two very different teams from two different worlds who have a very broad view of what entertainment is. That's how I see it.
Fastest hand in the East, partner.
A big thanks to Kenny for joining us on this video, and a big thanks to you for watching. Remember to comment below for what other games you'd like to see on the show, and be sure to subscribe for more content like this and beyond.